unto the Lord tonight? Aren't you glad that He saved the best wine for last? The new wine of the Holy Ghost. Come on and clap your hands and glorify the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords tonight. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Praise you, Father. Hallelujah. If you will, just stay on your feet for just a minute, if you will, please. Make welcome our guests tonight. I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about her. She can do that herself if she wants to. Most of you all that are members here, you've already heard me talk about it and shout about it and cry about it and everything else. Amen. But you know, tonight, one of the best ways, you know how the best way is to defeat your enemy? Is to see that enemy become your friend. Amen. And I want you to make welcome tonight to Victory Tabernacle. Mine and Sister Debbie's friend, Sister Lori Davis. Come on, make her welcome.
Good evening. Well, my name is Lori Davis. I don't know if you guys ever seen my face before tonight. And if you have, I'm glad you never knew me before tonight. And there's a reason why, and I'll let you know that in time to come. But I want to thank Terry for inviting me here tonight. And I also want to tell you why I'm here. Tonight I'm talking about the occult. I'm talking about the New Age. I'm talking about Satanism. I'm talking about voodoo. I'm talking about Santeria. I'm talking about witchcraft. I'm talking about all those things that are plaguing your children and adults today. Now, you may not know this, but a lot of you here tonight have it in your homes. A lot of you are letting it in, and it's coming through the movies. It's coming from the books, and it's coming from your school. It's coming from your best friends. Let me tell you about a best friend. Let me tell you about Sean Sellers. Let me tell you what he did. Good friend. One night, after he had involved himself into Wicca, witchcraft, he started doing rituals. He invoked spirits to come into him. The first shot was fired. He went to a convenience store and he got angry because he couldn't get a drink. The first shot was fired. He missed. The second shot, fired. He missed. The third shot hit and it splattered a man clear across the room. Blood shattered on the walls and on the floor. Now that may not, it may not sound bad, but it's what happened 6 months later. 6 months later, Sean asked Satan to come into him. He asked the spirits to guide him and to show him the way. Well, Sean played with fire, and the spirit entered him that night, and he had a dream. He dreamed he killed his parents. Well, the reality was Sean did kill his parents. And he had no idea that he did it. He was what we call under demonic possession. And yes, you've heard about it. In the ancient days, in the Bible days, when Jesus walked the earth, and even before Jesus was here, demonic possession was a reality. And Sean is on death row now. He's awaiting his execution. We don't know when that's going to be, but he is the youngest inmate on death row. And for you teenagers here tonight, I can tell you one thing. Sean, he ain't getting out. There's no way out for him now. Although Sean has turned his life around and he pleads Jesus. He claims to be a Christian, but he has got a long, hard road ahead of himself. Because even though Jesus forgave him, the guilt didn't. The guilt is still there in his mind. And let me tell you what, from my experience where I've been and where I've walked, it takes a long time to get rid of that guilt. And I'll tell you how it started a few minutes ago. But I also want to say that 8 months ago, I turned my TV over to Channel 68. And a program come on, Victory Tabernacle. And I was interested in watching it. And a voice came to me and told me, that's where you're going to speak. I didn't think much about it. I let it go. And 8 months later, I was standing at Home Depot, and a voice told me to look up, to there's the man that you want to meet. And I was in line, and I left my line. And I went out to a parking lot, and Terry was there, and his wife. And I spoke to them briefly. And that night I went home and I prayed to the Lord. And I said, Lord, if it's your will that I speak tonight, I said, let it happen quickly. And if it's not your will, then it was just my imagination. And the next day, the telephone rang, and it was Wayne, I believe Wayne, Brother David. Okay, and he called me and asked me to come and speak. So it happened very quickly. And the Lord spoke to me and told me, don't be afraid, don't be nervous, because it's not you that'll speak, but it's me that wants to speak to some of the children today and some of the adults today. Because especially if you're a teenager, you're walking that fine line. You've got the forces of darkness out there pulling you. Every move you make, and your enemy, he knows you. He knows you better than your own parents know you. So if you're here tonight, you didn't come by happenstance. See, I firmly believe what the Lord told me is that the Holy Spirit guides those to come. He goes before the one to speak, and he prepares the way for them to speak. And then he goes forth and he brings those that will listen, that want to hear, or that may need it sometime in their life. Maybe you're here tonight because you're in bondage to demonic forces, and I'll explain that in a minute. You can be a Christian and be in bondage to demonic forces. Being a Christian does not guarantee that those demonic forces are not going to come at you. As a matter of fact, when you signed up to be a Christian, when you gave your heart to the Lord, you went on hell's hit list. You became the number one enemy of Satan. But maybe you're not aware of the reason that you're here. Maybe you just had a strong desire to want to come. Or maybe what you're hearing tonight, you might need later on down the road. Maybe you'll fall by the wayside. Maybe a child might fall by the wayside. Or maybe you've been where I've been. I hope not. But if you have, you'll understand and you'll relate to every word I'm saying. I'll try to make it as simple as I can when I'm talking and try not to get so complicated, because the testimony that I'm going to give you tonight is dark. It's shameful. It's part of my past. And today I'm standing before you. That's not me anymore. Yeah. I'm washed, sanctified, set apart. But it didn't happen like that. God pulled me out of the darkness. But everything just didn't go away. See, I had done things that caused consequences. And those consequences, even though God washed me clean, were still there. And I had to face that. Just like Sean Sellers had to face that he killed his parents and he killed the convenience store clerk. I had to face what I did. It don't go away. Even though Jesus don't use it against you, Your own mind will do that. And Satan will come up against you and he will say, you're not saved. You're not washed. Look, you're still thinking about it. And I can walk today. I was deeply into the occult. And I would guarantee you in this house tonight and in Johnson City, there is not one person in this city that was deeper than I was into the occult. Satanism. And I just did not go into Satanism. It just didn't happen. It was progressively. It started out small, and then what was small went very large. So I've done a 180-degree turnaround. And when I start telling my testimony, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to shed some tears. And because I'm tenderhearted. Before, if you had met me, I would just as soon kill you as to look at you. I had a very hard heart. If you done anything against me, I would go light a candle up. And I'm talking about I knew my way around. I knew how to make you sick. I didn't just play with it. I did it. A lot of kids out here would just pick up a book and play with it. That's the danger. That's danger one. But I did the thing. I made lots of things happen. For instance, I'll tell you before I go on what I did. I had a voodoo doll. I made it out of candle myself. I inscribed some incantations on it, and I will not repeat those tonight, even though I do freshly recall some of them. I will not repeat those because I'm not here to give that kind of information out. I would take that to my grave. That is not for anybody to know. But I will tell you one thing. I did make the voodoo doll. I carved a hole in the chest, right in the chest, and I filled it full of ash and some other materials. And it was my own mother that I did this to. This is how hard my heart was. Why? Why did I do that to her? How could I do that to somebody that gave me birth? She was my enemy. She prayed for me. So, number one, she was my enemy. So I filled it full of ash, and I said a few incantations over it. She calls me up 3 days later and tells me that they found a tumor in her breast, possibly cancer. What did I do? I rejoiced. Yeah. Don't sound too pretty, does it? But, you know, Jesus, like I said, Jesus has forgiven me of that. And I have met my ends on that. But he's merciful, and he's forgiven me of all ungodliness. So when I cry, I'm not crying for my past. That's over and done with. I've shed a bucket of tears on that. But I'm crying for those that are still lost in it. And I know many of people that are still lost. And I am crying for those that are in here that may fall by the wayside, that will get trapped into it. I'm crying for those who refuse to believe in the spiritual warfare that we're having. I can't even begin to tell you how dark your world has become. When you get out there and you go underground and you see the things that are happening in the world, it's unbelievable. And, I mean, in church you hear about it. But when you're out there, you can't believe what's going on. I'm talking anything from murder, and I'm talking about worshiping Satan. The majority of the world today worships Satan. They may not come out and publicly say that, but if they're living any other life besides living it in Jesus Christ, then they're living a satanic life. It doesn't matter if you don't go to church and you say that you don't worship Satan. He's doing the ultimate thing to you. You're not going. Hey, he's won. He's won the game. because he has hardened your heart so much that you're not going to go to church. So that's his victory. That's what he wants. But see, the true believers of God, he will not get. He will try as hard as he can to come against you. But if you're true and you wear the full armor of God, he can't take you down. He may aggravate you. He may chastise you. You may fall short. But if you are a true believer, you'll come right back to number one, where you started. The Lord said in Daniel 11:32, in the last days, the people that know their God would stand up and do exploits. They would stand up and they would testify of what God has done in their life so that it can strengthen the body of the church. Because in the last days, the body of the church is coming against some strong, powerful stuff. And if you're not wearing that full armor, and I know Terry's preached on this, if you're not wearing that armor, you can forget it. It's over. It's done with. You've done signed your destiny. So today, it's your wake-up call. This is a testimony for everybody in here, so you will not go into where I was. I know that you say, well, I'm never going to go into that. But have you ever picked up a newspaper and read the horoscopes? I wasn't going to go into it either. That's where it started for me. I read the horoscopes. Progressive entrapment. Step by step. You get intrigued a little bit into the horoscope. Where does it go from there? Well, that sounded pretty good. Let's call up the psychic network. Or I know somebody that reads cards. Let's go see them. Step 2. Step 3, you go buy yourself a tarot deck. Books A Million sells them. They got them all over the store. They got them on their shelves. Just because the retailers are selling them doesn't mean it's okay to go play with them. Because when you pick it up, I'm telling you right now, you may be saying there's nothing wrong with it. You may be saying, well, I'm just reading the horoscope. I ain't taking it seriously. That's what the devil wants you to think. That's what I thought. I didn't take it seriously either. That's why I'm here today. I'm talking to you for what I did, my mistakes, my past, in hopes that maybe you won't do that, or you won't let your friend do that. You may know somebody that's into it. You may know somebody that don't go to church. If you can get them to church, you'd be the best friend they ever had. Because whoever helped me was the best friend I ever had. And I'm a firm believer that maybe it was Terry. I think that maybe Terry and the church, you guys, that were praying for me, brought me out of it. Because God listened, and he really heard your prayers. Because he showed me tonight, when you were singing tonight, and when you were clapping your hands tonight, I heard the roaring thunder, and I could just see fire going straight through the building. And I believe that I am close with God. I believe that I'm walking with the Lord. And if you do not believe that because of where I was, then you don't believe in the apostles. Because Paul once, even though maybe he didn't do the same things I did, he was lost in darkness. He watched the persecution of the Christians. He led them to be persecuted. He was standing there at Stephen when Stephen looked up into heaven, and he saw the Lord right there in heaven. And Paul was standing right there. Paul didn't see the Lord, but Stephen did, because he had it here. But it wasn't long after that till the Lord appeared in front of Paul, and he said, Paul, why are you persecuting me? Why are you doing this? And when Paul looked at him, he knew. He knew from that moment that Jesus was the Lord. And he followed him from that moment out. So the Lord can call you out of darkness, just like he did Paul, just like he did me. And you got a lot of your friends telling you today God is dead. Where is God? You know, we got a lot of turmoil going on in the world. They're fighting in Iraq right now. How can they do that? How can the floods be coming and killing a lot of people? And then people are crying, the Lord ain't listening. He's done left us. He's abandoning us. But that's not true. Because every day that you wake up in Jesus Christ, the Lord is there. And if you're a true believer, you're going to recognize that. And you're going to see the miracles around you every day. Every day a baby's born. Every day you wake up breathing. Every day that you're able to walk. Lord is the Lord. And I wanted to tell you tonight, before I go on to my testimony, about Satan. You know, I used to think Satan was the best friend that I ever had. I used to think that he was Lord of my life. And from an inside view on a Satanist, I can tell you that up front they'll tell you that there's no God, there's no devil. Neither one of them exists. You are it. And that's what they'll tell you. That's what they'll make you believe. But that's not true. That's not true at all. Because behind the curtain, Satan is number one. Behind the curtain, the rituals are performed, the blood is splattered, and every gruesome thing that you've ever heard of is reality. Now, you might have somebody sitting here tonight that might be in the occult and say, well, that's not true. I don't do that. Well, that's just because you ain't there yet. That's just because you haven't taken the step. It'll come. If you stay where you're at, it comes. But Satan's like a roaring lion. He's out there. He seeks who he will to devour. And, you know, just because you're a Christian, like I said earlier, it doesn't make you safe. In fact, it makes you the prime target. Because he's going to come at you because he wants you. See, before you were a Christian, you belonged to him. You belonged in his kingdom. You done his will by not obeying God. Well, he had you blind and he kept you in chains to that. He didn't give up. So, if you think that your name was not added to his hit list, then you're deceived. And that's his game too. He likes to deceive every move. He likes to cover himself so that you don't think it has anything to do with Satan at all. But when you become an enemy of Satan, the devil's out to make war against you. He's out to tear up your life, everybody around you. He may turn your best friend against you. He may take your family away from you. Lord knows he's ripped everything away from me. I was a Satanist. My family was against me. I turned Christian, and they're against me now. But I let that go. See, that don't bother me. I can let family go. I can let my best friend go. I can let my sister go. But I can't let God go. So Paul warned you. He warns us over and over again in the Bible. I have studied the Bible. I study it 10 hours a day. And he warns you over and over in the Bible to put on the full armor of God, not to be deceived, because he will come against you. There will be a time. It may be every day, because he may have reason to pull you away from God. He has every reason. He's perishing. So if he's perishing, why not you? He hates you, but he'll lie to you. He'll say that he's your best friend. Anything to get you out of church. Anything to get you from putting on your Sunday clothes and coming. He'll do everything possible, from your car tearing up for no apparent reason. And a lot of people say, well, this is bull. It's not bull. It happens. And I can tell you it happens because I played with the forces. I know what they are. I know where they are, and I know who they are. But our full armor of God is the belt of truth. It's a breastplate of righteousness. It's the shoes of peace. It's a shield of faith. It's the helmet of salvation. It's the sword of the Spirit. And like I said, if you're not dressed today, you ain't got a chance. The only chance that you have is to repent, to turn, and ask for forgiveness. That's all. It's a simple thing, but many people aren't doing it. But God has given His word through Jesus Christ. If we obey, then we can fight and overcome it. Satan's kingdom has always been here. It's been here from the beginning. If you remember, Satan was the one in the Garden of Eden. He's the one that enticed Eve to take of the forbidden fruit of his works. And she did, because she was wholly. The Hebrew Bible says she was wholly deceived. And that means in mind and in spirit. If you look around today, Satan's kingdom has been growing from the very beginning. It's much older than you are. It just didn't come here overnight. It's been here from the beginning. His roots are firmly in the ground, and it's growing right beside of your house. It may be growing in your house. Now, I know Terry has already done a few things. He's burned books of the occult. He's called for people to bring them in, to burn them. And that is one step that they did back in the Bible days, is they burned them, because that's the only way to get rid of them. If you have books, posters, music, that's a good one, black metal music. I helped Marilyn Manson, except he didn't go by the name Marilyn Manson. Back then he went by some bogus, I guess it was his real name. But now he uses Marilyn Manson. Glenn Danzig, he was in the underground. There was a group called Asheron. Vincent Crowley was the group leader's name. He was one of my best friends. And every one of these people that were into black metal music was worshiping Satan behind the curtain. As a matter of fact, Asheron, they were pretty big. And I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but they are big. And he runs an order called the Order of the Evil Eye. And he is a high priest of the Church of Satan. There's people that you don't even know of. Bob Johnson. That don't ring a bell. Let me tell you who he is. He's the editor in New York of a magazine called High Society, Playgirl magazine, and he distributes probably about 50 other magazines. He's a high priest of the Church of Satan. They're all over the country. There's some in Congress right now. You wouldn't even think at Congress. The people that are supposed to be representing our country are into Satanism. But it is active, it's here, it's been growing for a long time. You can't stop it. But you can put on the full armor of God, and you can come against it, and it won't hurt you if you're properly prepared. But Satan is going to win a majority of the people. And the only person that's going to be able to dig out the roots and get rid of them is Jesus Christ himself. We can't do it. They're too deep. We wouldn't even know where to start to dig. Okay? Now, if your enemy knows you, if Satan knows you, he's known you from the day you were born. He studies you. He knows you better than your mom and dad. He knows how to get to you. He knows how to get under your skin. He knows how to come at you with the fiery darts that he shoots. And they're not literal darts. You know, you're not going to see them. You're not going to be able to duck. They're going to come at you with TV, music. Music is the main thing. It is the main thing. And I have preached so many times to my son, well, Mama, you can't say that all music's bad. Well, I can say, is it praising the Lord? Are the lyrics giving praise? And when he answers those questions and he says, no, it's not, but, then I say, well, then it's of Satan. Anything that is not of God is of Satan. There is a line that runs across our world, if you can imagine it. One side is the kingdom of Satan. The other side's the kingdom of God. And to this day, there's 6.8 billion people in the world. Each and every person will have to make a decision which side they're going to go on and make it for life. Because you are in the last days. I don't know if you've had that revelation yet or not. I know I do. I know every night I go to bed, I see the end of the world. I see the stars falling. God showed me since I was a baby the same dream over and over and over. And then when I got into Satanism, the dream stopped. I never had it anymore. And then when I came out of it, the dream started back up again. Same thing. Stars fall from the sky, and I hear a voice thundering from heaven. It sounds like thunder. And then the sky, I see the angels coming down, and they grab the people, and there's no time. There's no time to say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it. It happens like that. It's quick. You know, a lot of people may think this is a fantasy. We don't have no proof of it, but you're living, you're breathing. That's your proof. You are living and you're breathing, and God says He gave the breath of life. Where else did it come from? There's nowhere else it could have come from. Your evolutionists will tell you it came from a monkey. They'll tell you that you found it, you know, it was developed in the sea from a tiny little cell. There's no way. God formed man, period. No question. And if you doubt that, then you're giving Satan the opportunity to fill your head with his logic. And let me tell you something, his logic's not stupid. He's going to go into all these technological terms, and he's going to have 1 million people to come against you and say, hey, that's right. That is exactly right, and here's our proof. But they ain't got the Bible. And they ain't got God in their heart, or they wouldn't be saying such nonsense. See, it took me years to learn this. It took a lot of darkness. It took a lot of dirt to go through to learn what I've learned today. And the Lord told me that I would be out speaking. He told me that for years I served Satan. And He said, now it's time to serve me. He said, prove yourself. I did. I grabbed the Bible and I studied. I studied my heart out. I went through the whole Bible. I've underlined stuff. I've took notes on just about everything that you could take notes on, trying to find myself somewhere in between the pages. And what I learned was that I didn't need to be a preacher. I didn't need to be anything other than me. Because of what I went through, my testimony is outweighing a lot of other people. It outweighs it because I have been there. I'm not speaking from a book. I'm not speaking from movies. I'm not speaking from fantasies. I'm speaking from reality. I'm speaking where I was. And I'm telling you that it's real. And I'm telling you it's in your music, it's in everything. It's everything that's attached to the world, Satan is a part of. And if you have it in your house, then you're inviting that in. It's like a welcome mat. If I say I have God in my heart and I've got tarot cards in my pocket, what am I doing? The Lord said you can't drink from the cup of the devil and drink from the cup of Him. There's no way you can do both. If you have the Spirit of God in your heart and the Spirit of God on your mind, you're not going to have those tarots in your pocket. I don't have them. I got Kleenexes in my pocket today because I got this very soft heart. If I see somebody hurting, I see a dog hurt on the street now, I'll stand there and cry like a baby. It's just twisted in my heart. And I guess everybody says, well, you can cry on a dime. Praise God. Before I couldn't. Before I would probably never even crack a smile unless you were blaspheming the Lord. See, that was funny to me. But I serve the Lord today, and for the rest of my life I'll go on, as long as the Lord lets me live. And probably through eternity, I pray that I will spend eternity with the Lord. But I got to tell you, even though the Lord's washed me clean, and I've had the dreams of Him coming and pouring water, an angel pouring water over me, because I just didn't have to go down into the back. I really had to be cleaned. I'm telling you, I really was in the darkness. And if I can stand up in front of you tonight and say the things that I'm saying, you too can go tell a friend. If you see a friend doing something they're not supposed to be doing, if you see them listening to Metallica, stop them. Tell them something. Because you know what? And let me bounce off for just a minute and tell you something out of the Bible. It says in the Bible that if you do not tell that friend what he is doing, and that friend goes deep into sin, then you're accountable. God's going to ask you, why? Why didn't you say something to him? Because maybe that one word that you said, that you planted in his head, might not turn him around right then, but it may turn him around a month down the road. So, you can't let it slip by. You've got to tell, you've got to be a fanatic if that's what it takes. And I've been called a Jesus freak. I've been called a fanatic because I sit at home. I sit at home reading the Bible. I watch Christian shows. I talk about God all the time. So I'm a Jesus freak. Well, but enough of that. I'll let me get into my testimony a little bit here. As I said before, it all began very innocently. I read horoscopes out of the paper. I didn't read them every day. Gee, there's nothing wrong with that. I picked up the paper maybe once a month, and I read the horoscopes. I found them a little bit funny. They didn't really hit my life right on target, but they intrigued me. So I went from there to, I called a psychic network. Psychic network. What a sham. It's a really bad sham that they got going. That's the only word you can say for it. They take a lot of money, and they're probably sitting behind there reading a book. And that's about as far as that goes. But that intrigued me too, because some of the things that they did say did happen in my life. So I went from the psychic network to Mooney's. I think I stopped by Mooney's one day, and I picked up a tarot deck. I started laying them out. I started picking up the book, and I studied so hard that I memorized everything in that book. So I started laying the tarot cards out, and I started hearing things in my head. Things that told me, well, tomorrow this is going to happen to you. Or your sister. I laid my tarot cards out for my sister. In 1 year, she's going to be pregnant. Tell her that. So I told her that. A year later, she's pregnant. See, the thing about tarot cards that you don't understand is they're gateways to demons. And when you read the cards, it's not you that's telling the future. The demons are listening to what you're saying. And they go before you. And they cause the events to happen. Just so they happen in your life that way, so you will slide a little bit deeper. That's all. You ain't psychic. You ain't got the knowledge of the future. Nobody has the knowledge of the future but Jesus Christ himself. You're not going to get it through a deck of cards. I don't care if you do spells 24 hours a day. It's not coming that way. But the demons, they're all ears. You know, they listen to everything that you say. And they go before you. And they make it happen. Now, I went from tarot cards into what they call Wicca. Harmless, love nature, pagan, and they had the knowledge back then in the books and everything to tell me that it was a natural religion. The worship of Mother Earth, the trees, the sky, everything had a reason for being there. So I said, well, that's harmless enough. And then they gave me the Wiccan creed. And it harm none, do what thou wilt. As long as you're not harming anyone, they say that's okay. But they don't tell you the other part of it. If somebody does something to you, light a candle up. A black candle. Light it up. Send the negative energy that they're feeding you back to them. Black magic. That's all it is. Wicca is doing black magic. Mother Nature, Mother Earth, Satan. Just a different name. The witches deal with the voodoo dolls. Herbs. If you're into natural herbs, same thing. They deal with them. They use them a lot. Anything that they can get a hold of, pictures, we use those. We would take a drawing, put it up, and we would come as close as we could to our enemy of drawing their face. Then we would set that in a circle. We'd put candles around it. And we wrote some things on it. Now, I'm not going to mention those because I don't want anybody here going, trying to do any of that. But we would do things like burn certain spots in it. And lo and behold, that person would have trouble. They would have trouble. Because whoever the demon was that was watching that went before and went into that person's life and messed it up. Because you gave them the authority to do that. You gave them the open channel to go mess that person up. See, when I did that to my mom she didn't have on the full armor of God. She wasn't active in church. But she prayed to God. God will hear me if I pray to him. Not so. God hears a repentive heart. And the key word there is repentive heart. When you come to him and you say you're sorry and you ask for forgiveness, he hears you. And then he hears you from then on. But if you're a sinner, just reaching out and trying to pray and you have no way that you're thinking of becoming a Christian or anything like that, he's not going to hear you. He's got too many other children that he needs to hear, that he needs to work for. A lot of people say, well, that's not being merciful. Well, it's not being too merciful on your part not to repent of what you did. The Lord is merciful when you say you're sorry, not when you just want to use him. And as I tell a lot of people, the Lord's not a mat. He's not there for you to wipe your feet on and for you to go through the door. It don't work that way. You can't wipe your feet on the Creator. That doesn't work. So I went from Wicca. It bored me because everything that I did in Wicca, I could do. I done everything, so I started looking into other things. I went from Wicca into voodoo. I played with the voodoo dolls, so I looked that up. Thought, well, maybe that would interest me a little bit more. So I went deeply into that. And I done incantations in that, and lo and behold, that worked too. And I learned that tooth and nail. I done things with nails, placing them in trees, casting spells, having people to do what I want them to do. You may think, yeah, right. That don't sound right. But it's true. It happens. If you don't believe it, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, it's all full of it. It's all full of people that worshiped idols. And they done the very same things that they do today. The very same things. And it was an abomination then, it's abomination today. No matter what form it comes in. From voodoo, because you can do the zombie thing through voodoo too. You can cause people to become like they're dazing, like they don't know, they're walking around in a daze. That happens, and it's very real. New Orleans, go there and learn that. They teach that there. They have a school there, a school that teaches you to do these things. I went from voodoo into what they call the Necronomicon. The Necronomicon was my baby. That intrigued me so much because I've always liked the thought of ancient things. And the Necronomicon was pretty good because it taught me about what I thought were ancient gods. I got to listen to people that actually knew the writers of, or the writer of the Necronomicon was H.P. Lovecraft. And H.P. Lovecraft, they say, was a fiction writer. And that the book, you can buy it in a store, and it's called the Necronomicon. And it's got a sigil on the front of it. And a lot of people say, well, H.P. Lovecraft was fiction. Yeah. He wrote about Cthulhu. He wrote about Narthop. He wrote about a bunch of gods back then. But what they didn't know, what a lot of people don't know, is that H.P. Lovecraft's daddy was in what they call the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn was Rosicrucians. They believed in magic very much. They believed in idol worship. And this is where all of his information came from. His daddy wrote a diary, a journal, a black book is what they called it. And he had hid it. And when his daddy died, he didn't die a natural death. His daddy went crazy. His daddy went insane. They said that he opened up a gate of Cthulhu. And that spirit entered him because he went crazy overnight. And that's what happened to H.P. Lovecraft's daddy. And he found the book that was in his father's library. And he took it, and that's where the stories from the Necronomicon come from. So that's just it's a little bit of background on that, but I played with the Necronomicon. I made what they call amulets, sigils, with them. And there's 12 gates that you can go through. Actually, there's 7 in the book, but there's actually 12. And you draw them on the ground. And you put your candles in the 4 corners, and there's what they call a watcher that comes and sits beside of it, and you're supposed to project yourself with your soul through that portal. And then you can see things. And it opens up doorways. And you get to see things that are happening to other people. And then tell them the next day what went on. And it works. It really works. And I thought that was good. See, I thought everything that I done there was good. The spells I cast, the learning of projecting my body. You laid on the floor and you asked the spirits to help you. Open up my body, let it pull my spirit through. Take me through the gate so that I can see the things that I want to see. And it happens. I've had it happen to me so many times where you can't explain it, but the only thing you can call it is your soul. Your body will start tingling all over. And it feels like you're very light. And all of a sudden, this thing will pull from your body. And you'll start seeing visions. So I would tell people what they were doing, what happened, and I would draw other dimensions, other worlds. But see, what I didn't know the whole time I was doing this, I thought I was smart. I thought that I had some great power, that I was able to do all these things. But it wasn't. It was the demons all along. They were leading me through that, and I didn't even know it. I was just so vulnerable. And the whole time that my body was stretched out on the floor, the candles were lit, and my soul was off, wherever, when my spirit left my body. Those demons were right there, body unguarded. You know what happens when you have your body unguarded? You know what happens when there's nothing in this vessel? Let me turn. I'll let you know what Jesus said happens when a vessel is unguarded. It is in chapter 11 and verse 24 of St. Luke. When the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest. And finding none, he says, I will return from my house whence I came. And when he cometh, he finds it swept and garnished. See, when a demon leaves your body, and it goes to the dry places, the earth, it comes back again. But when it comes back, it don't come by itself. Then goeth he and taketh to him 7 more spirits, more wickeder than himself. And they enter in, and they dwell in that vessel. And the last state of that man is worse than the first state of that man. How could that be? Bull. That's what a lot of people told me. That can't happen. Oh, yeah? I went from the Necronomicon into the final bottom line, Satanism. Can't get much deeper than that. But after I done that, after my soul had projected time and time again, it wasn't long till I became fully possessed. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about people. They were my last concern. I hated everybody. I would just as soon not even look at you and hate you. not even know you and hate you. I would love to hurt you before I would help you. My philosophy was, you're on your own, you know, and I'm on my own and I'm helping myself and forget you. I don't care who you are or what you are, I'm taking care of number one. And they led me to think that. They led me to think that I was God. You know, that's sad. That's sad when you think a person can think that they're God. But I did. Because Satanism taught me that I was my own God. That I could do anything that I wanted to do. I could create anything I wanted to create. I could destroy anything I wanted to destroy. You know, Anton LaVey taught us that. He wrote the Satanic Bible. LaVey and me, just like that. We were friends. Blanche Barton, the high priestess, just like that. Magister Gilmore, Peter Gilmore. I talked to him just about every night on the telephone. We conversed, and I went from there into opening up a store in North Carolina, Goldsboro. I called it Magical Beginnings. Sounded light and airy, and I had a lot of witch friends that I had coming in there, Gavin and Yvonne Frost, that run the Church of Wicca. I had them coming in there, and some of their friends. And when I wasn't intrigued with that area enough, there was too many white lighters, what we call white lighters. They thought themselves to be good all the time and never denied black magic and all this. Even though they did it behind the curtain, they wouldn't openly say, I'm a black witch, you know, or I'm a Satanist. And that offended me. Because if you couldn't say that you were a Satanist, I was offended. Just like a Christian may be offended if somebody puts down the Lord. I was offended if you put down Satan. If you cast the world away, that offended me. So I had all this hate built up inside of me. And I left North Carolina. I packed my store up. And I went from there to California, Sacramento, California. And I didn't open up a store. I put everything in storage, but I joined a cult there. Covenant of the Ancient Ones. They were into the Necronomicon. Damian Anderson, Sue Anderson, the high priest and high priestess. Place like this, church. They done all the incantations. They initiated me into the Covenant of the Ancient Ones. I was initiated in as priest because I had a high knowledge of the Necronomicon. And the things that I could do, they felt that I deserved more, a higher place in the church, so to speak. But I went from, that became very dangerous because, see, Damien was very intelligent, but he was so intelligent that he was over the edge. He was demonically possessed. He wanted to kill 11 people. One of them, me. Wanted to spill our blood on a rock. The ultimate sacrifice to call forth a demon named Cthulhu. Well, if you know anything about Cthulhu, it's Satan. And that's what he was going to do. He was going to call him forth. But see, what I learned is Cthulhu was already there. He didn't have to spill any blood. He didn't have to call anything forth. He was already there. But I started getting nervous. I started getting real scared. We had performed rituals where we had the neighbors that didn't know what we were doing calling and complaining that there was something going on. They would see shadows at 4 o'clock in the morning running in and out of the house and nobody would be there. One neighbor, little girl, I'll never forget her. she called me up and she said, "Lori, are you all right?" I said, "Yes, I am. Who is this?" She says, "My name's Debbie." She says, "I live in front of you." She says, "But I noticed that something was wrong in your house." She says, "I keep seeing things going back and forth." She says, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I was just taking a nap." And she said, I heard 1,000 whispers. Sounded like 1,000 whispers coming by my window. And she was wanting answers. I couldn't give her answers because I didn't have any. But all I know is that evening, I had lit 2 candles up in the fireplace. I was doing a binding spell, what they call a binding spell, in order to hold someone at will, at your will, to make them do things that you want them to do. It's like catching their soul and their heart. And I was in the middle of doing that. And she said all this stuff was happening and it scared her. She didn't know what I was doing. She didn't even know what I was at that time because they were new neighbors. But after that, she soon found out what I was. And that night, things got a little haywire. A voice kept telling me, "When the candles are out, it'll come. It'll come." I didn't know what the voice was talking about. But that night, I fell asleep during the spell. Because you were supposed to. You were supposed to sleep when you lit the candles. And I fell asleep and I heard something come through the house and it hit me here on the chest. And I heard the word growl, "Evil." And that's what it said. Stereo went off. My telephone started ringing, but there was nobody on there. This was demonic happenings in the house. And you think, well, that can't happen. I'm here to tell you right now that it can happen. I'm not standing up here giving you fantasy. I'm not standing up here giving you a movie. I'm giving you reality. And I'm telling you what God told me to tell you. If you don't think it's real, then you are deceived. Because this stuff is just as real as a person next to you is real. And if you're reading horoscopes, because that's where it started with me, you're playing with fire. And you will, guarantee, get burned. There's no way out of that. Anything you got in your house, book, posters, amulets, records, anything that Jesus would not approve of is a calling card. If you had Jesus right beside of you and you said, "Jesus, would you approve of this movie?" What do you think? You're going to hear that voice inside of you saying, "Nah, it's got something in it that I don't want to see." That's the Holy Spirit. That's Him talking to you saying, "Don't do it." And if you do it, you're doing against the will of God. You're drinking from the cup of the devil. You cannot drink from the cup of the devil and the cup of God. It don't work. And after California, like I said, I got scared. Damien scared me because at that time I was not ready to see bloodshed. My heart, deep down inside of me, would not let it go on. Something convicted me of that and said, you cannot do that. Even though it was prepared for, even though He was going to do it, even though I was the one that said I would do it. Something inside of me said, you got to get out of there. So I packed up everything. And in a hurry, I left California and I come to Johnson City. I took my store and I put it on the Jonesboro Highway and I called it Fact and Fantasy. I just had it open because I had a lot of things I wanted to sell. I didn't know how long I was going to stay there, but I knew that I was going to be there. And me and Mooney were friends. He ran the occult store downtown. I'm not sure what the name, I forgot what, Moon's Magic or something like that, Medieval Magic. We talked on the telephone quite often. He didn't want me to come here because I was competition to him. But I had a lot of things that I wanted to sell off. And like I said, when I got to Johnson City, I bought a deck of tarots from him too. You know, I put away my candles and stuff and started reading tarots. I read them out of the store. And I had a lot of customers. And did you know a majority of my customers were anywhere from 40 to 60 years old? You wouldn't think so. You would think that it would just be kids. But it was actual adults, mature adults that were coming in and getting their fortunes read. $1,000 a week, no problem. I could pop it off just like that because I had every demon inside of me telling me what to tell that person. And then they would go on ahead of me and make it happen so that those people would come back to me and I could do it all over again. Make more money so I could entrap more people. I had a lot of kids that come into my store and I taught them. I taught them tarot cards. I told them what to do a love spell. And they would come in the next week and say, Lori, it happened just like you said it would. Everything I did, it happened, it came true. See, I was poisoning their minds. I knew it. I knew what I was doing. I was accountable for every person that I put a bad thought into their head. I was accountable every time somebody went and bought a pack of cards. And I said, get these, you'll enjoy them. Or handed them a candle and told them to light it up. I was accountable for that. But something happened to me. After the store, I closed down the store, but I want to tell you before I did that, Terry and his wife came into the store one day, and they wanted to talk to me. I know they wanted to talk to me, maybe to say something, maybe to plant a seed into my head. And Terry comes through the door with his wife, and they looked around the store, and he comes up to the counter. And I said, you're Terry Phillips, aren't you? He says, yes, I am. See, a voice told me, tell him, you're Terry Phillips. I knew his name. Whoa, that's pretty powerful stuff. I never met Terry before. I never seen Terry before. I lived out of state. And he came in, and I said, you're Terry Phillips, aren't you? And I said, we draw our power from the same source. I said, only I recognize mine for what it is. See, I accused Terry of drawing his power from Satan. He knew what I was saying. He knew I was lost. He knew everything about me, but see, I didn't even know that I was that lost. I knew I was doing wrong, but I didn't know I was that lost. So Terry, he comes back and he prays. I believe he had the church praying. And I believe that something happened. I don't know what it was, but I shut my store down. But I wouldn't let it go. I didn't want that money to die down. Or I didn't want to let go of my tarots. I wanted to hang on to them, so I started a mail order business. And I made so much money off of that mail order business. And I kept rolling it back into it. And I met Anton LaVey. got to meet him. And he calls me up and he says, Lori, he says, will you do me a favor? I said, sure, what is it? Anything I can do for you. And he says, will you make me a tarot deck? Sure, Anton, I'll make you a tarot deck. What do you want? Satan's tarots. That's what I want you to make. So I did. I made them. And I sent them out. I don't know how many we sold. The negatives are here. If anybody wants to see after I'm finished speaking that I'm speaking the truth, I have them in my hand before they're destroyed. I destroyed everything else. I destroyed my books. I destroyed my ram's head that I had hanging up on my altar. I destroyed everything. This is my altar. This is where I worshiped Satan. This is where the Baphomet hung. It's just one wall, but it's the Baphomet. It's a circle with a 5-pointed star, and it hangs upside down. And I had a cross of Jesus. I found it very funny at the time. I hung it upside down. And I wrote on it, I'm nailed right in. It was supposed to be a joke because of INRI that was put at the top of the cross to mean King of the Jews. I blasphemed right there. Mistake one. And I have the candles where I done my little spells and the dead animals, the ram skull, everything. See, this is pain right here. Everything about that picture is pain because you don't see pain. Maybe not when you look at that, but I see it. I know what went on in there. I know the people that I cursed. I know everything that I did, and it hurts. It truly hurts. I know in that room, astral projection, the Ouija boards, table, body lifting, Dungeons and Dragons, speaking in trances, automatic writing, even down to what they call the Magic 8 Ball, which is a game, telepathy, spells and curses, calling on the spirit guides, having seances, what they call materialism we did, fortune-telling, tarot cards, palm reading, astrology, the horoscopes, pendulum dowsing, black magic, white magic, medicine. We made our own medicine. That's probably why I don't feel good today. We made our own medicine. But self-hypnosis, mental manipulation in order to deceive and swap minds with people, to be able to do those things. Blood pacts, cutting ourselves. I made a pact, put it on parchment paper. It's the type of paper that's that they used to use back in the Egyptian days out of papyrus or something like that. But anyway, it was parchment paper. And I used it and I wrote a blood pact. If anybody knows what a blood pact is, it's words written in blood, your own blood. I wrote that out, cut myself and did it. Now give my soul to Satan. You know, he's the Lord of my life. I renounce God. I renounce Jesus Christ. I renounce everything in my life, and I give Satan the power to give me what he wants me to have. That was the pact. And I kept it. And I kept it tucked away in my room. And then we had crystals and good luck charms, and then we had what we called the incuba and the succuba. And they were sexual demons that we had in there. There was a great deal of things that room contained, the horrors that it contained. But we continued on in our mail order and worshiping Satan through our room for a while after we closed down, after I had spoke to Terry. We continued for a little bit. And then something just started eating at me. I don't know what it was, but it just started eating at me. It started pulling me closer to God. And at the time, I didn't know what it was, but now I do. I destroyed everything that I had. I took a brick and I smashed the ram skull. I smashed the black mirrors. I smashed everything in the room. I took the cross and I broke it. Not because Jesus was on it, but because of what it represented at the time. I made sure that I destroyed everything. Everything but these pictures here, because I wanted to show you tonight that I'm speaking from truth. It's a little bit of evidence. It's not a whole lot. I could have brought you a whole room full of evidence, but I don't need to do that. You're either going to believe me or you're not going to believe me. And so the Lord told me that after I'm done, when I'm finished speaking to as many as I want to speak to, then destroy it. And I will. That's my promise to God. But something happened, and I started changing. I didn't start playing with my tarot cards anymore. They scared me, because every time I played with them, death would come up. The demons that were my best friends, they weren't friends anymore. They turned against me. I started seeing death on everything. It told me my dad was going to die. It told me everything. It told me an airplane was going to go up in the sky. And told me there would be no survivors. They would all die that night. The next morning we heard on the radio that a plane had blown up that was taken off from JF Kennedy Airport. And it blew up in the sky, and there was over 200 people that died. There was no survivors in that. And I knew it before it happened, the night before it happened, and it scared me. All of this scared me to death. I was changing. Something was changing me. And I believe that it was my spirit that was calling on God. It was saying, I'm in the darkness. There's no way out, and I need your help. Even though my mind hadn't heard it yet, but my spirit started calling on the Lord. And so I closed down the mail order and everything. I had nothing. I cut all connections with Anton LaVey. He hates me now. I'm his number one enemy. And I'm sure that every night a candle is lit up for me against him. But you know what God told me? He told me that every time that a person who is into witchcraft lights a candle, every time that they do that, hell lights up 50 for them. Because they're sucking them in, they're calling them in, they're taking them in as fast as they can. And they don't even know it. They're falling into this big, deep hole, deeper and deeper. So I know that Anton LaVey today is still doing what he does. He's still lighting his candles. He's still putting women on the altar. He's still doing everything that he can do. And he's not going to change. He may one day, but in the near future, he's not going to change because he's opened up what they call the Church of Satan, and it's flourishing. Do you know that the Satanic Bible now on college campuses, in schools, outsells the Bible? It is outselling the Bible because people want to listen to what he says, because he has got a philosophy of living life, not of the afterlife. He says you can have everything that you want right now, today. You are your own God. You can make it happen. There's no God, there's no devil, there's only you. He's saying this publicly, but to me on the telephone, to me out in California, he's saying, there is Satan. He does exist. But we acknowledge him the way we acknowledge him, and that's not to go out publicly. He lies to everybody. Just like Jesus said, Satan is a liar. He's the father of all lies. He has been from the very beginning. And he is good at it. He's very good at it. And he's very deceptive. See, you're not talking about some little demon running around. You're talking about Satan. You're talking about an angel. You're talking about somebody who was God's most beloved angel. He was anointed. He covered the cherubim. He was great. God loved him. He walked in, every precious stone covered him. He was beyond what we could ever imagine. He said upon the holy mountain of God. Have any of you ever done that? You know, this is somebody that's been from the very beginning, when that he was created in heaven. None of us have been created in heaven. We were born here. And this is who your enemy is. He knows you. He knows where you live. He knows your thoughts. He knows everything about you. And if he can find 1 inch to get in, he's in there. Any way to get in. Through your parents, through your children, through anybody, he's coming. He is coming. And let me tell you, if you don't have on the full armor of God, you're not going to be able to withstand it. Because I have been there. I've walked there. And I'm not going to tell you tonight, I'm going to tell you that the darkness that I was in was very bad. And the guilt, when I turned over and I became a Christian, I fell on my knees. And I asked God into my heart. And I changed. You know, I can say to you that I am washed and mean it. But if you knew the darkness, Moses, and the darkness is really thick and it's dark, Moses stretched out his hand over Egypt, his rod, and the Lord said, let the darkness be felt. That's how thick it is. And I was there. I've seen things that I'm not even going to tell you about. I've seen people spiritually dead. Sean, who now, he's not getting out of it. They're going to kill him because he killed. So he's going to die because that's his punishment. But he's going to accept that. And the Lord, he pulled me out of it before it was too late. I was that close. I could have killed. I could have killed any time, any moment. It might have been one of you. I might have been out on the street and I may have grabbed one of your kids. I may have grabbed one of your daughters. I may have had one of your sons took. It could have been me. But the Lord reached down. He heard my cry. Don't ever judge anyone. Because you know what? You don't know what's going on in here. You don't know the battle that is going on between the good and the bad and the person. See, my soul was at stake. And the Lord reached out. And he pulled me out of that. And he says, you're going to talk. You're going to tell those people that this is real. You're going to tell those people that you are living in the last days. He's here. The wrath of God is being poured out before your eyes. turn on your TV, look at the floods, look at the fires. And he tells me that he's coming back. How do I know that this is not the demons talking to me? I questioned that. The Lord said, a demon would never lead you to the church. A demon would never take you to a place where you could plant a thought into someone's head that may later become good, that may later cause them to spread other seeds, because he wants to destroy Christ. See, the enemy, the Lord told me that Satan, from the very beginning, has just tried to destroy him. Over and over, he tried to destroy him when he was a baby. He had all the babies murdered where he was. Some of the women died because Satan was after him then. And he tried to destroy him when he was here on the earth. He tried to tempt him in the desert. And if you don't think that Satan can do that to you, watch out, because he did it to Christ. But Christ knew something that we didn't. He knew it in here. He knew who the Father was. He knew that he could call on God. And he knew that he could do what God wanted him to do, and he would be fine. And he was able to overcome the devil. And the devil left him. He says that the Bible says that the devil left him for a season. Not forever. For a season. So if the devil's going to come up against Christ, he was there at the crucifixion. Satan was there when Christ got crucified. All of these events that happened in history, according to the Hebrew Bibles, according to the ancient documents, he's been there all along. It's been him that's been popping up all along. So I know that God pulled me out of the darkness. And it took a lot of time. It took a lot of effort. And there's still mud back there. There's still dirt. And there's still a lot of things back there that's hurting me. But there's time for me to get over it, because the Lord will cleanse me and he'll heal me from what has been wrong in my life. So I'm begging you tonight, as a body of believers, that you do what God has said. You study his word. Just don't go home and leave a Bible on your shelf and let it collect dust. Study the word. Draw closer to God, because you're going to need him. Because the devil's out there. And he's not going away, and he's coming back, and he's coming stronger and stronger every day. More and more people are going over to his side every day. Even though there's souls coming to God, there's souls going over to him as well. And there's a big battle that's going to go on. You meditate day and night on his word, just like the Bible says. These are all things that I'm doing. These are all things that I have done since he pulled me out of the darkness. You put no evil before your eyes. Don't let it into your homes. Don't let it go on under your nose. If your friends are doing it and you don't like it and you know it's wrong, turn away. Turn your back on them. Walk the other way. You don't need to stand right there with them. You don't need to hear what's coming out of their mouths. You don't need to take it. Jesus would not want you to take it. He would say, move. Go to the other side. Do not stand there and have fellowship with that. It says in the Bible not to have fellowship with the darkness, to separate yourself, to come out and be separate. They are perishing. As they are, they perish. You're to separate yourself and come out. You do what is good, and you do what's righteous, and you separate yourself from the world. If you're lost tonight and you don't know God, whatever you want to do, whatever you got to do, open your heart. Don't be hardened. Open your eyes. Look around the world today. Watch what happens. Look at your news. They're destroying Babylon right now. during the process of it, open up Revelations and listen. Whoa, whoa. You know, those are the cries that are being done in heaven right now. Because it's happening right before our eyes and we don't even see it. Because we're not looking, we're not paying attention. What did Jesus say? He said, watch. Be vigilant. Be alert. Watch for his coming, because it's quick. It's not going to take all day. It's not going to take all night. It's going to happen very quick. And don't waste what precious time you've been given, because you don't know tomorrow. You don't know if you step out this door, if something don't take you away. If your very heart gives out, and I hope it don't, you don't know how long you're going to live. You choose this day who you will serve. You repent and turn from your ways and ask for forgiveness, because I've learned that God is merciful. His arms are not too short, that he can't just reach down and grab you and say, you want to be saved? I'm pulling you up. You can become my child. Leave. If you're into the occult, drop it. Leave it. Don't let it do to you what it did to me. It made me bitter, hard. It made me blaspheme God. I put a t-shirt out. Didn't tell you about this. A picture of Christ with a crown of thorns on his head, and it said, suffer. And then it had a blasphemous name below it. And we sold a lot of them. We sold so many things like it. And you would not believe the children, the adults that were buying this stuff. They were eating it up. They loved it. And it was all bad. And I think that's one of the reasons that kept me so intrigued, is because I could do this, that the majority of the people were buying it up. And it just kept me like a slave making it and sending it out. If everybody's doing it, it must be okay. But it wasn't okay. It was an abomination. It was an abomination before Christ came here. It's an abomination today, and it'll be an abomination tomorrow. The occult cannot promise you salvation. It never will, and it never has. It'll lie to you. It'll promise you your own world. It'll promise you to be God. The New Age movement is Satanism. I don't know if anybody knows that today, that they teach you to be your own God, that God is within you. And like I told you before, I was a Satanist and I was my own God. You know, I believed that that's what they taught me. The New Age movement is an old age lie. And it's here, it's went full circle. The New Age movement was in the Garden of Eden, and it's here today. The sins have come full circle. The time that the Lord will return, I believe with all my heart and all my soul, is in my generation. I'm 33 years old. A generation could be 70 years. 100, 120. But the Lord told me that I would see the time when the heavens would open up. He didn't tell me what day. He didn't tell me what hour. But he said I would see it. And it will be in my time. So whatever you do, don't let anything like that pull you down, drag you away from God. God's more important. It took me 33 years to find him. I ain't giving him up. Not for you, not for family, not for nobody. And nothing's going to protect you when the wrath of God comes. I can't. God can. Nobody else. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and that no man comes to the Father except through him. He's the doorway. If you don't believe in him, or if you don't listen to him or go through him to get to God, There's no other way. All other ways are the roads and the doorways that lead to hell. And I want to tell you, I was there. I was on my way to hell. I know it. I can stand here today and tell you that that's exactly where I was going. With a millstone around my neck. I was flying there. But God reached down and he said, no, this is really my child. And he pulled me up. And I'm not going there today. I'm on my way to heaven. And then it may be tomorrow. It may be next week. But everything that I have said up in here, and I've told you about the occult, everything, it's all true. My daughter's right there. She can testify to it. She can tell you how much she wanted me out of it. It scared her, but I didn't care. That's how lost I was. It didn't matter. So, whatever you do, I think Terry, I got a lot of respect for him because he teaches the spiritual. He teaches the spiritual things. And he recognizes that there's dark forces out there, and he's not afraid to go out and protest. He's not afraid to stand out in front of his doors and do exploits. He's not afraid of that. You can't be afraid either. I can't be afraid. Because there's going to come a time when we may have to stand up against somebody. And they may blow our head off. But we're going to have to stand strong and tell them to pull the trigger. Because if it ever happens, the minute you close your eyes, the next minute they open, you'll be with God. And I think that's the whole point of being a Christian, is wanting to be with God. And if you're in the house tonight and you don't know if you've read horoscopes or if you've watched TV or if you've listened to the radio and you're unsure if you've done something wrong, Terry's got an altar. It's God's altar. It's here. And if he gives the altar call, if you've done something wrong, please come up. God will forgive you. He forgave me. And I guarantee that I was more in darkness than anybody in this room has ever seen, has ever known.
Amen. Praise you, Jesus. We've been talking a lot and ministering a lot in the last few weeks about mercy, God's mercy. Tonight you witnessed a prime example, perfect example of God's mercy. Because see, no matter how far you go, no matter how deep into sin, whether you're just a good old boy, a good old East Tennessee redneck, or whether you're into the depthness and depravity of Satanism, Jesus loves you just the same. He died that you might have life. And not just an existence, but life more abundantly. And his mercy extends. There is no way to define God's mercy, because he loves us when we don't deserve to be loved. He loves us when we're not able to be loved. But he loves us when nobody else can.